There is a question that can completely transform a life. Who am I, really? But there is a reason why so few people ask this question deeply. Because self-knowledge sounds beautiful in theory, but in practice, it confronts you. Looking within does not only mean finding light, it also means facing everything you spent years trying to avoid. Fears, insecurities, contradictions, wounds. And perhaps that is exactly why so many people prefer to remain distracted. We live in a time where it is possible to occupy every second of the mind. Videos, music, conversations, social media, work, constant noise. And in the middle of so much stimulation, something important happens. You stop listening to yourself because silence reveals. And many people are not prepared for what they may find within themselves. Self-knowledge requires honesty, and honesty hurts. It hurts to realize that some choices were never truly yours. It hurts to realize that many behaviors come from fear. It hurts to realize that you spent years trying to please others while slowly abandoning yourself. That is why avoiding self-knowledge is not laziness. Often it is psychological protection. The mind creates distractions to avoid certain inner confrontations, because questioning who you are also threatens who you believe yourself to be, and that creates insecurity. Who would you be without the roles you learned to perform, without the need for approval, without social masks, without the versions of yourself created to survive? Few people truly want to find out because there is comfort in familiar identity, even when it causes suffering. What is familiar creates a sense of control, but self-knowledge opens doors to the unknown, and the unknown is frightening. Perhaps that is why so many people prefer repeating patterns instead of investigating their own pain, because investigation requires stopping. And stopping means feeling what was repressed, what was ignored, what was buried beneath distractions. The problem is that what is not faced does not disappear. It continues acting in silence, influencing choices, relationships, emotional reactions. Many times you believe you are living consciously, when in reality you are only repeating old conditioning. Self-knowledge breaks automatism, and that can be uncomfortable because once you begin to see clearly, you can no longer pretend not to see. You notice toxic patterns. You notice emotional dependencies. You notice emptiness trying to be filled externally. And perhaps for the first time, you realize how far you have drifted from yourself. But there is another reason why we avoid looking within: the fear of change. Because knowing yourself transforms you, and transformation requires letting go. Sometimes you must abandon old versions of yourself. You must change environments. You must reevaluate relationships. You must admit uncomfortable truths. And not everyone is ready for that. It is easier to remain distracted, easier to remain busy, easier to remain on autopilot, because autopilot numbs, but it also imprisons. Modern society itself encourages constant distraction. The less awareness people have, the easier it becomes to consume without questioning, to react without reflecting, to follow without realizing. A person disconnected from themselves is easier to influence. That is why self-knowledge is almost an act of resistance. Resistance against automatism, against inherited patterns, against a life lived only on the surface. But the inner journey does not happen all at once. It begins quietly, in moments of silence, in honest questions, in discomforts you choose not to avoid. And little by little, something changes. You begin to realize that your greatest fear was never truly self-knowledge. It was discovering how far you had become from who you really are. But there is freedom in that realization. Because what is seen can be transformed. What becomes conscious no longer controls you in the dark. And perhaps that is exactly where life begins to gain depth. Not when you find perfect answers, but when you finally stop running from yourself. Because self-knowledge is not about becoming superior. It is about becoming real. And truth at first may feel frightening, but eventually it sets you free.